Hey everybody, welcome back to Andrew McDonald English. This is lesson 3, and today we're going to be going over adverbs of frequency and telling time. So, the first part we have here are adverbs of frequency, and these are the 8 and then the 2 others, the 10 main ones. And the way we're going to format them is by looking at this line. So as you can see, it starts at the top at always, 100%, always. And then it goes all the way down to never, 0%, never, right? So the more higher you go, the more frequently it'll be, the more it happens. The lower you go, the less it happens, the less frequent. Because never, not frequent at all. Okay, so let's just start by sorting these together. So, number 1 we have here is seldom, seldom. Now, seldom is more rare, so something that is seldom is something that doesn't happen too often, meaning it would go likely down here. Seldom. Okay, the next one is often, often. And often is the opposite of seldom. It means not always, but most of the time, yes. So often would be up here. The next word we have is occasionally, occasionally. And occasionally means it happens from time to time, but yet not too often. However, it would be a little more often than seldom, meaning it would go here. Okay, the next one is don't usually, or do not usually. And don't usually is very similar to the others, to seldom, to occasionally, in that it is very rare that this one would happen. Don't usually means that almost all the time it's a no, meaning it would go down here before seldom. Don't usually. Our next one is the opposite, usually, usually. That is similar to often. However, it likely means a bit less than often. This means that almost every time it'll be yes. So usually would go here. Okay. The next one is hardly ever. Hardly ever is also one of the negative ones, meaning that it basically never happens except a tiny amount of time. Hardly ever would go here before don't usually. The next one is sometimes, sometimes. Now sometimes is kind of between the two. Sometimes can mean half and half. It could mean maybe 70%, 30%. However, sometimes is much more positive than all the others, like occasionally or not usually. So sometimes would go somewhere here in the middle. Okay, and our last one is frequently. Frequently. Frequently is very common, meaning that it would go quite up high. I would put it before or higher than often even. Okay, so please take a look at this chart here, going from all the way, always happening, to never happening. These words, mainly separated in these 3 sections, can actually be, they can actually be perhaps changed, don't usually and hardly ever perhaps could be switched, but they would be in this rough order. So our next exercise to practice with these adverbs of frequency is going to be about writing sentences. So they give you all of the adverbs of frequency listed here in the rough order that they would be in. Now, it starts the sentence with I. I always. I frequently. I seldom. I never, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to take I, the adverb, and then complete the sentence. So let's do a few together. I always eat lunch. I always eat lunch. Every day I eat lunch. Let's do another one. I sometimes go for a walk. I hardly ever, visit New York City. Right? So these are just understanding the adverbs themselves and how they relate with I in sentences that you do. I blank. So please go ahead, fill this sheet out, and we will look back after. I'll fill out some more of my answers, but this is for your own independent work. So please go ahead, fill out this sheet, and we'll review after. Okay, once you've completed this whole thing, you've written answers for all of the adverbs listed here. On the next page, it's a very similar exercise. However, we're using the he or she pronoun. So the actual verb will be a little different. However, the directions are exactly the same. He or she always eats lunch. He or she sometimes goes for a walk. He or she hardly ever visits New York City. So the directions are exactly the same. You're still formulating sentences with these adverbs, but just keep in mind that it is he or she. So the actual verb itself will be a little bit different. Okay, go ahead and fill these through, and once you've done that, resume the video and we'll go on to our next part. Okay, so our next part of the lesson after the adverbs is telling time. So there are a couple different ways to tell time in English, and the way we speak actually may not be exactly the same as the numbers. So let's start by looking at two together, and we'll look at one that's more simple first. This one here, it's 10:40. It's 10:40. Now, as you probably remember from our lesson on numbers, 10:40 would look like this. 10:40. And it would have this colon in the middle to show that it's time. 10:40. Now, 10:40, when you tell time, this here is the hour. And then this here is the minute. The hour is the shorthand, while the minute is the longhand. Meaning that once you got up to the clock, it would look like this. You'd have a shorthand pointing at 10, and then you'd have a longhand pointing at 40, which would be somewhere down here. So this is roughly what the time would look like for 10:40. But now let's look at number one. Number 1 says it's a 8:15. It's 8:15. Now, a quarter is 1/4. 1/4. That's a quarter. And an hour is 60 minutes. So divided by 4 equals 15 minutes. So a quarter is 15 minutes. Quarter is 15 minutes. Past, it means it's after. So it is a quarter after 8. Means a quarter is 15 minutes and past is after. This means it is 15 minutes past 8. So it would be 8:15. So it's 8:15. So now let's go to the clock and we'll make that happen. So the shorthand goes to 8. And then the longhand goes to where 15 would be, which is here. 8:15. So if somebody says it's a quarter past 8, this is what they would mean. This is 8:15. Let's do one more together. Okay, this one down here says it's 10 past 12. It's 10 past 12. This means that the hour is 12 and it's 10 minutes past is after. So the time would be 12:10. 12:10. So the shorthand would point up at 12, while the longhand would point over to 10. And that would be it. Okay, so please go ahead and do C, E, and F, and then we'll look over those together when we're done. Okay, so let's start with our review here. So C says it is 1:05. It is 1:05. Now, 1:05 means exactly how it says. O, in this case, refers to 0. So it is 1:05, meaning the time would be like this. 1:05. So let's put that on the clock. 1, the shorthand would point towards 1, and then the longhand would also point that way due to it being 05. So the two hands are actually together because the shorthand points to 1 and the longhand points to 05. Okay, so now we'll do part E. Part E says it's 2:30. Now, a quarter is 15 minutes. So a half, which would be 1/2, is 30 minutes. And as we discussed before, past means after. So this means it's 30 minutes after 2, or 2:30. So the time is 2:30. So let's look at the clock. The shorthand will point to 2, and the longhand will point to where 30 will be. Now let's look at F. F is much more simple, just saying it's 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. That just means that it is, well, 9 o'clock. And it would look like this. So, for this instance, we'd do the shorthand would go towards 9. And being 0, the tall hand would go towards 12 because that's where 0 is. Okay, so this next exercise flips the order and gives you the clock, but yet you have to write what time it is. So let's look at A. A. First, look at the longhand. The longhand points right into the 3 section before 4. So it would be 3. And then up here, if here is 60 minutes, this would be 55. So it would be 3:55. Now, let's look over here. So the shorthand points directly at 10. So the hour is 10. And then the longhand points up, so it's 0. So it would just be 10 o'clock. Okay, go through C, D, E, and F, and then we'll review them together. So let's review C, D, E, and F of the time. So C, as you can see, the shorthand points towards 7, and then the longhand points to 15. 7:15. Now, on to D. The shorthand points to 5 because 5 is all the way up until 6. So it would be 5. And then the longhand points to 35. Similar here, the shorthand points to 11. And the longhand points to 5. Don't forget to have that O there so it shows that it is 5 and not 50. All right, and for the last one, the shorthand points to the 4 area. And the longhand points to 8, which is 40 minutes. So it would be 4:40. Please have a look at these times. Make sure they're correct. The most important way that I would, advise you to go about learning these is to use an analog clock. Use a circle clock, not the one on your phone. Use one like this and really try to understand how the time is spelled in English because this format is not the same in every country. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching this lesson of Andrew McDonald English on adverbs of frequency and telling time. Like always, this sheet, both completed and not completed, will be linked below in the description. So please have a look, all with the notes or completely blank. Like always, please subscribe, especially if you found these videos helpful, and thank you so much for watching.